Alright boys, so as I mentioned in my Oberon summoning video yesterday, or whenever I actually threw that video up, I mentioned that I wanted to start doing some tier list videos towards the end of every year to kind of see how the game has changed slowly, and I just think end of the year is really good for doing things like this because you can kind of catch up with all the new servants that have come out and all that good stuff, blah blah blah. So in today's video, we're going to start off by doing the objectively true free-to-play FGO tier list. This is going to be the 150% most objective list you'll ever see. If anybody disagrees, you could just point and laugh at them because they're 100% wrong. But what quantifies a free-to-play servant? Because I can get MASH for free by just playing the game. I get a free copy of Bedivere for beating Camelot. So what constitutes a free-to-play servant for this list? So basically, these are all servants you get from playing an event, right? Like that is kind of the definition of a free-to-play or welfare servant that I'm using. I feel like everybody knows what I'm talking about. It's just there's like weird exceptions that aren't on here, like Habitrot or like say Nobukatsu, right? I'm just kind of excluding them because you don't farm them from an event, but they are free. They'd be more along the lines of like, say, like Kucaster, or not Kucaster, but like Lancer, right? Because you can get him technically maxed out for free, but that's a whole different like low rarity video or something along those lines. But with that being said, I'm here with my boys in Twitch chat. They're ready to, you know, try to say that I'm going to make any mistakes, right? They're going to be like, oh, this man said that Lily's got a 30% battery when she's got a 20%. Look, sometimes I have a little bit of a misinput, all right? Sometimes I'll make a little bit of a goof or a little bit of a mistake, but you know what? I'm human. Anyway, let's go ahead and just start jumping into this. So we've got our 5 tiers. You can basically just treat these as like S, A, B, C, D, right? But you guys know that I love to have like fun with my like tier list name. So we're just going to go in order. I'm not going to just start jumping around. Or actually, am I? Should I just grab the broken people first? Like, should I just grab the obviously broken people and just put them in broken and just kind of start talking about some of the lesser known people or like getting into some of the more interesting slots? I think that's what we're going to go ahead and do. So let's just like go ahead and just start getting all of like our broken people out. Like everybody knows that Kentucky Rider is absolutely insanely broken. This guy doesn't really do anything like super, I would say, special. He just is like a really good quick bungus, right? He has like a 50% battery, he stacks quick on his NP, and because he's a free NP5, his damage is really good. And it just makes him really broken. And Chloe's literally the same thing, but she's arts, right? They're both just doing like very simple things, but they do that simple fundamental thing so well that they become broken. Now, Chloe I'd probably say is a little bit better because she's at least got like a dodge, whereas Kentucky's main method of survivability is like, hey man, I got a small heal, and it's like, great, that's probably not going to keep you alive, but then again, not many people are going to survive the onslaught of NPs that Kentucky Rider is going to be throwing their way. So these are two like more of the obvious ones you could throw their way, although maybe a little bit of a surprise entry, although I kind of simp for her a whole lot, and I've used her a lot on streams, as someone like Jalter Berserker. I think she's also insanely good because she just kind of is a really solid single target buster servant, right? Like, even though her battery's not as big as the other ones, it's enough to get you to the finish line with like her NP gain skill. The fact that she refreshes a dodge every turn for 3 turns is really good. Her damage is very solid because she's a Zerk, right? Which is probably why they didn't give her like an insane 50% battery or anything like that. But she just does really, really good damage. There's no buster welfare with 50% battery. That's also true, but I think if Jalter Berserker had a 50% battery, she would have been a little too good, right? Because that's kind of like the balance I see between these guys, is that they all are just kind of like bunguses for each of their different card types, right? But Jalter's absurd, so she gets super effective on everybody, where like you could say that, well, Kentucky maybe gets stopped against like assassins, or Chloe gets stopped against lancers, or like maybe they can at least get stopped by that. Jalter gets stopped by like foreigners who just like don't exist, right? Like they're just not really a thing that she has to worry about, so it doesn't really like affect her too much. But yeah, like those are 3 that I think are really easy to bump out of the way. I'm not here slipping over my words, but let's get over to some of the other ones that are also equally broken. Where is Shiki? There's Shiki. Shiki's also insanely good, kind of in like maybe in a bit of a different way than Chloe, because her and Chloe are both single targets. you know, they're both single target art servants, right? She's got a battery not as big as Chloe's, but Shiki brings a little bit more value in different ways with the fact that she has like Pierce invincibility and like Pierce defense. So she's kind of like a free-to-play player's option to just get around anything, right? She also has the insta-kill mechanic, which usually isn't really good, but there's like specific scenarios where you just need to insta-kill a really big like silver or bronze enemy, and Shiki's really good to at least have that in your repertoire of skills, and so I just also think that she's deserving of being up this high. Now, that being said, those are like the 4 main ones I want to talk about before we just start going in order, because you know, now at these point, like those are the ones that I really want to make sure I get. There's other broken servants. I'm not going to say that someone like BB doesn't also deserve to go up here, but I'm just saying now I'm going to start moving in order because those are the main ones that I like to really hit. But BB, I think, is also deserving of being up here. She literally has like just one of the better crit skills in the entirety of the game. Just like free 50% crit for 3 turns and just decent star weight, combined with the fact that she can like debuff cleanse people. Her damage is really solid. I mean, just in general, very, very solid boss killing servant for anybody to have. Not that like they're not good boss killing servants, but BB's a little bit more built for more difficult fights, right? Like these guys are really good if you can just like charge in there and then just beat them down, right? BB's really good if you know like the fight's gonna be a bit longer and you can't just like 1 to 2 shot the enemy, right? Like 1 to 2 NPs is not going to be really, like it's not going to be enough, right? BB at the very least, like she's really good for like those more long drawn out fights with things like the debuff cleanse. So she's really, really good. Cha-Cha, okay, Cha-Cha is where we start to go down to like, she's not poo-poo stinky, she's not that bad, but Cha-Cha has a really hard time staying relevant. And I think she's like slowly falling off more and more, because the good thing about Cha-Cha when she first came out in year 2 is that you could pop her like NP skill, and every single turn you would gain NP, so by the time you got to the 3rd node, you could AoE the final node with like a big Buster Berserker and hopefully take them all out. But one of the things that I also didn't like about Cha-Cha being used in that way is that one of her main methods of getting a lot of damage is lowering people's defense with, I believe it's her 3rd skill that lowers their defense every single turn. And so it kind of conflicted with that, because you have one skill that people were trying to use to get into like the 3rd wave, but Cha-Cha really just wanted to stay in the fight and start fighting one enemy. Like she wanted to like really lower their defense down and slowly take them out. So I don't know, like if they were like toss her a battery, which I don't know if they ever will, if they toss her something like that, like 30% or something, that could really help her out a lot. But as of right now, she really doesn't have a whole lot of relevancy right now. Like when it comes to like the meta of FGO, she's not bad. You could definitely use her, which is kind of like the kind of mid or like the average usable tier. That's why these are a little more interchangeable. I wouldn't sweat too much about B and C, because it's like you could get some mileage out of her, but it's like if I'm gonna say that like she's usable or something, I don't know. Like, I just don't think she's on par with like the other servants that I would say are usable, where like she's going to be one of the last ones that you actually go to. I see 2 Rider Liz's. It's because I was testing things out. I was trying to see what images I could throw in here. For people watching this on YouTube, we were having a really hard time getting Ranmaru on the tier list. Like, she did not want to be in here. And so I was trying to hold a bunch of different things. So yeah, I know there's a second Rider Liz. She's not going in there. I mean, I think Saber Liz is actually a little bit more mid. Like, I think she's raised a little bit after her buff, right? Like, same thing with, like, pretty much Caster Liz as well. Like, they've gone from, like, kind of being completely bad to, like, mid. Like, they're a bit more usable now. I don't think they're, like, complete hot dog water, but they're still not great. Right? Like, you're going to have, like, other better options, especially in this context of like a free-to-play list, right? Like, are you going to use Liz or are you going to use like Jalter, right? Like, if you really have the option, you're probably going to use Jalter over her, right? Same thing with like Caster Liz. There's other better Buster AoEs for you to actually go ahead and use, right? There's other people that are going to do her job just a tad bit better. This is where we come to someone like Ryoma. So Ryoma, I'm actually going to say is lower usable, right? And here's the reason. The very least, then like what I think makes Ryoma a little usable is the fact that like if you're really desperate, you can kind of use him as like a pseudo art support, because he gives a little bit of NP, a little bit of an arts buff, and a little bit of an attack buff, right? He gives you just a little bit of everything. Not super great, but it is like, you know, it at least gives him some kind of edge in some capacity over like Chloe, BB, or like Shiki as like the single target arts guy that like, well, I mean, Chloe and Shiki are pretty selfish, and BB has some party utility, but she's still relatively selfish. At least like Ryoma over here, at least he's got like some party like utility, so it's like, I don't really know. Like, that's like the best I can give him. It is good. Like, it's not bad that he has like a little bit of that, because like a lot of these other servants are still like really determined on like just kind of them. Like, they don't really like, they're not like doing a whole lot for either themselves or the party. Or at least Ryoma, free NP5 could do some decent damage, and you know, he gives some buffs to the party. That's really the best I can actually give him though. The Mecha Lizzes, I'm actually going to bump them a little bit higher than them, just because their value as like free to play. Well, actually, look, we love Carmilla over Liz around here. Come on, man. But so we're going to put her above. But they have a little bit more value in the fact that they are a free to play alter ego for some players. And if you don't have somebody like Okita Alter, I know that they're different. Like, she's single target and Okita's AoE, but like if you don't have yourself an alter ego is what I'm getting at. Like, you don't have somebody to fill that role, then you at least have like one of these Lizzes. And so they have a little bit more value because of that. And they're actually not terrible, right? And I mean, but they're not great either, which is why they're in this like B tier area, right? They have a lot of value because they're in a weird extra deck class that not all players are going to have access to. And they're also not the worst ever, right? Like, they at least are like pretty decent when it comes to like being a single target buster servant. So yeah, we have them up there. Where is Santa Nightingale? Because I'm gonna have her and like kind of Altera in a similar spots. Actually, no, I like Nightingale a lot more. I think Nightingale does a lot more. Like, okay, I basically see both of these two as kind of like the same thing. Ironically enough, they're both like single target, quick archers, right? That both also want to function as like support type servants. I just think that Nightingale is literally the more up-to-date version of that model, right? Like, where she's like, oh, I can give like the crit damage and the attack and the guts and all of that good stuff. Whereas Altera's kind of edge is like the battery and everything, right? Like, that's kind of nice. But Nightingale is kind of giving you like a little bit too much, right? Again, she's just more of like a modern servant. Like, literally comes out the next year. Go figure, she's going to do basically her job, but better. Not to say that Altera is bad. In fact, I think if you wanted to kind of make an argument for oh, Nightingale's AoE. I told you I was gonna slip up on something. I'm gonna slip up on something. All right, I'm telling you, this video is gonna be like 40 minutes long. I'm gonna slip up. I'm gonna slip up at some point, and so somebody's gotta correct me. That's why I'm doing it with Twitch chat this time. That way, if I make a mistake, I can beat people in the comments to it. Hopefully, but still, the point stands. Regardless of them being single target or AoE, I think Nightingale is kind of doing the support job a bit better than someone like Altera. Not to say that Altera is bad. I think if you wanted to make the argument that she could be more in this like lower good tier, I think that's a little bit of a stretch. I think having her in this tier when I'm kind of thinking of other people that are going to be up here might be kind of stretching how good she is a little bit. But I do think that she does definitely deserve a lot of praise as well, because Altera is just generally like very, very good as well. So anyway, then we have Irisfield. And I don't want to be mean and like put Irisfield down here, but like healers like her and Medea Lily are extremely niche in FGO. Like, their role, like, you're just 9 times out of 10, 9.9 times out of 10, you're just far and away much better putting literally anybody else in the party, right? Like, you're just way better off putting in like your mash or a taunter to like buy yourself some turns, another support caster for damage, just another DPS. Even someone like Ku or Heracles as like an anchor is even probably more valuable in case your team fails, and you at least got them down there to like, you know, save your life as like a focus sash, right? And then yeah, she even gets like outclassed by Asclepius, right? Like Asclepius, who not only does the healing thing, but also is providing like battery and like NP gain and all that other good stuff that the party also wants, right? It's just Irisfield really needs to get more buffs, because she's from that era where her and Medea Lily were really, really focused on just being healers, right? And that was the only thing. And Irisfield's thing was that she could give the entire party guts on her NP, which was really nice, but it's just like, it's just not a niche that's like really desired or wanted right now in the game. I love Irisfield. I think she's really cute, but unfortunately, you don't you don't get anywhere on this tier list for being cute, right? If Jalter was her, if their kits were swapped, I'd feel really bad because I have to throw Jalter and poo-poo Mondoodoo Stinky. And all I'm hoping is that when we get Summer Morgan, and if she is a free-to-play servant, please, Lasengo, just give her to me for free. I'm hoping they definitely don't do her like this. Ishtar's definitely decent. Ishtar's not bad. Now, keep in mind, I'm not exactly ranking them in the tiers. I'm kind of just generally throwing them in tiers. But Rider Ishtar is basically, like, she's kind of like a free-to-play AoE, like, farming Rider. Maybe, like, you could say, like, she's, like, maybe a little bit worse than, like, Achilles, right? Like, the free-to-play version of him. That has a little bit of that utility that I was talking about. Because keep in mind that, like, the quick and NP gain is given to everybody, right? So, like, ironically enough, I have a lot of experience using her because I never pulled Scotty on my NA version. And so Rider Ishtar actually helped out quite a few times because of the extra buffs from like the NP gain and the quick buffs that she was able to give. And sometimes that would kind of allow me to barely get by in some farms. So like, I definitely have a lot of experience with using this servant as like someone that can help you farm if your box is just not quite good enough, but also using her as a farmer. Now, not having a Scotty of my own definitely made that hard, but the fact that I was able to kind of get her to do it by bringing like a friend Scotty and then like using her own skills and like a waiver plus like Parasussi, you know, doing stuff like that does definitely tell me that she's like good enough to be in like the average usable tier. She's not phenomenal. Like I wouldn't like rate her super high. I wouldn't give her like that 8 out of 10 ranking, but probably around like 6, 7, like definitely really high up there. Can definitely help out a lot of players. Then jumping right back down to mid. I mean, the one thing that she's got going for her is that she has a 55% buster buff and she's got like a 20% battery, but like she gives an attack buff. Here's the weird thing is that she gives an attack buff to the entire party on her NP, but it only lasts for the turn. So like she has to go first in a chain for people to benefit from that, which is kind of weird. Like if it was like 2 turns or even like 3 turns, like she could stack it on people, it would make it like more worth spamming, right? Like I guess like is what I would say about it, but I don't know. I've definitely I've used the servant a lot when I was first starting out on the game because she was like one of the few free to plays I had. It's starting around the I believe I started around when her event started for NA, and then you know she came out like shortly after, right? And I was able to get her, and so I was like, wow, this servant can do a lot of damage at free NP5 with a 55% buster mana burst, but it doesn't really matter if you can only fire 1 NP and then you're like, well, that's gonna be it for me. That's it for me. I'm never firing another NP. She's got like a good shell for her kit, right? Like if you look at the skeleton of what she's doing, you could definitely see her being like more broken in the future, but until they give her some more support, she's kind of suffering a little bit. Saber Lily held back by just poo-poo stinky stats, man. I don't know what they were thinking. I mean, I guess DW is just really greedy when they were starting out the game. And they were saying that like, oh yeah, like we're going to give everybody this free 4-star servant, but then make them basically a 3-star servant with a 4-star servant's cost. Now, they're slowly making her better, like throwing her a bone by giving her the battery. Definitely stuff that can help her out, but I still don't think she's quite cracked up into those higher tiers yet. She does have some like nodes where you want to use her for like certain farming nodes. I know it's very niche and it comes up very not often or very rarely, right, is the word I'm looking for. It's not a very common thing to happen, but like she does see some use, which is why I was tempted to throw up into the like the average tier up here and like kind of throw her up, but I don't want to be like, okay, she's able to like farm like 1 or 2 of these nodes that like we're never gonna see again, and like because they don't want to do reruns apparently. And so I was like, all right, you know what, I'm just gonna throw her down here. Just if she turns out to be better in the future, we'll correct it next year. But right now, this is kind of where my gut feeling is telling to put her off of like the fact that she's only able to do a couple of those nodes. Like it comes up very rarely, doesn't exactly speak volumes to like people up in this tier, right? Same thing kind of comes for Nobu. Nobu just needs more damage, honestly. Nobu's got like really good niches going for her. Like she's got like the writing and everything. But if they just give her like, I don't know, they toss her about. But see, that's why I also think that you can maybe like put her in. You know what? I'm actually gonna bump her up. I am gonna bump her up because I'm like, you know what? No, the writing is not bad because most sabers have that. So she not only will have like type advantage, but she'll also be like anti-writing. And divine as a special damage mod is also really good. So I was like, you know what? I'm actually gonna go ahead and chuck her up to the average usable because even though her damage is not super great outside of those damage mods, those damage mods are good enough, and because a lot of, again, like, sabers have writing specifically, it does actually help her out a lot. So I was like, you know what? I will actually toss her up there. Plus, the NP gain buff that she has is, like, surprisingly really, really good for a servant that came out as early as she did. So I was like, you know what? I will chuck her that bone. Bunyan's also really good. Well, not like really insanely, intensely good, but she is pretty good. She's kind of like, what if Cha-Cha was a bit better, giving you like pretty decent damage, while also like giving a lot of buffs to the party as well. The problem though is that I feel like a lot of people have a scuffed view on Bunyan because she has a lot of value in being grailed, right? Like you'll see a lot of people grail Bunyan because her kit is definitely really, really strong. She just kind of suffers from being a 1-star servant, so she doesn't exactly shine that well as a 1-star, but she gets really good as you grail her more and more, and basically just give her the stats that she kind of needs to truly show off how good she is. So because like I'm not taking grailing into account, like I'm just taking her as she is, I think that just sitting in average is still perfectly fine. But like the fact that she could just like, you know, smack all the enemy's defense, give you a big buster buff. She is an AoE berserker, so she's really good for like clearing out waves. She has one of the quickest NPs in the game. Just very nice stuff, especially from a farming perspective. Shootin' Doji. Shooting's kind of a hard one. Same with Kets, although I think ultimately, as I'm thinking about it, I think average is still fine for them because I'm still holding. I might like adjust towards the very end, but I'm like thinking about like, because I see like Kagetora here, and I think Kagetora is like either broken or like phenomenal. Like I think she's really good. I'm trying to hold back on her though because I know I have I know that I have a huge bias for Kagetora, so I don't know if just putting her in good is me trying to like keep my bias in check, or if that's actually how good she is. But like when I look at like servants that I know that I'm going to be putting up here and here, I'm like, Shootin being like a single target like DPS caster has some value for people that don't have someone like Sanzo or Ilya, because for whatever reason, Sanzo and Ilya are just like stupid dummy broken now. Like Sanzo was struggling with not having like enough consistent buffs, right? With her NP damage buff only being 1 turn, so they gave her an attack buff to make up for it. Ilya was struggling to get to her NP, give her a 50% battery, and so, you know, she definitely has some very tough competition. And Shootin's kit isn't like the most broken thing, but it gets you across the finish line, right? Like it's just enough, and I don't know, it's also just hard being a single target caster, right? Because you're either complete just poo-poo stinky, or you're literally just Sanzo, like you're just God. She's just really, really good. And then Quetzalcoatl, every time I look at her her kit, I always feel like she's just missing like one thing. Like she's got like the pieces there where like she kind of wants to be like an Emiya or an Iskandar, where like she's like boosting her crit drop rate and then has like this AoE like buster NP. Her damage isn't like terrible, but it's hard for me to pinpoint down. I'm like, is it because she's like a ruler that I feel like her damage like isn't all there? Like she's not really like doing super effective damage, so it feels like she's not like living up to what she could be doing, or is she just like missing out on like one buff or something? And it's just every time I like go through her kit, because you know I've had to make like 3 videos on a lot of these servants because I've been making videos for a long time, and so every time I revisit them, I'm like, I don't know, I feel like she's just missing that like that one little thing. Like there's just like one thing that I can't exactly put my finger on, like what she would need. Maybe it's 2 things. But like for Shootin and like for ruler Quetzalcoatl, it just feels like they're missing like one or two things, right? I don't know. It's like 1 or 2 things I feel like they're missing out on, and then they definitely become like really good servants overnight. So we'll definitely see. Watch right now, by the way. They're like, hey, so Christmas is on JP. We threw Quetzalcoatl a buff that made her dummy broken. It's like a 50% battery, and like she bombs 50 stars onto the field. That's crazy. And I'll be like, well, I guess she literally just became broken overnight. But Kagetora. So Kagetora, since she was technically next, but I was throwing her up there to kind of make the point that I don't think characters like them can quite match up to people up here, right? Kagetora, I would definitely like to say should be in broken. The only issue I have with Kagetora is that she's kind of a one-pump chump, right? Like when I think about someone like Kintoki, who like builds up as the fight goes on, or Shiki, who's a one pump chump, but she pierces literally everything. Also with like the battery and the fact that she gives the player the ability, like in their box, to have at least the ability to insta kill something, right? Like if there's ever like a big silver enemy or a big, bronze enemy, like she provides it to the table. Like BB's got like good consistent damage. The problem that I have with Kagetora is that like she gets a lot of damage as a really good strong NP, and then will probably loop another NP because of how her NP gain works. But I don't like certain things like the NP gain being on the dodge skill. That is a little annoying because that will kind of like force you to waste the dodge to get the NP gain so you can set up your second NP. Although it feels like she loses a lot of damage after she fires that first one, right? Because she's got like a lot of one-turn buffs. And that's the one thing that I don't like about her. As much as I love Kagetora, it's kind of like she was made in a weird period where like bosses and FGO were starting to get, how do you say, like beefier, right? Like they were getting to a point where you couldn't just be like, okay, I'm gonna go in with Skahawk, fire one big nuclear bomb NP, and then completely end the fight right there. Like it wasn't like that anymore because we were getting break bars and we were getting bosses that had more and more break bars. So it's like firing 2 NPs is not enough. Now you got to be able to fire like 3 good NPs, and now we got people like Melusine who's like, you got to be able to fire like 7 NPs in a row. And people are getting crazy. And so while I think Kagetora is really good, I think she's really, really strong, that's the one thing that I think is kind of holding her back a little bit, is the fact that she was kind of made at like the end of like that point where bosses were starting to get like really beefy, right? And so while she has like really good, like her first NP hits really hard, and then she could probably just guaranteed loop her next one, the issue is that like it feels like she kind of starts to fall off after that, right? But her skills are still very, very good. She does provide some utility for the party with her very strong charisma, giving like 3 different buffs to everybody. But I think that holds her back just a little bit, right? That might be kind of like a bit of a hot take, but keep in mind, Kagetora is one of my favorite servants of all time. So I'm trying to be harsh. I'm trying to like find criticisms and trying to not just be like, oh, dude, I love Kagetora, throw up and broken. I'm trying to keep her in check. But same thing. Gray, I think Gray holds a lot of value just because of the fact, the same thing that like Shiki. While I don't think Gray's kit is super broken, I think the fact that she's providing the player not only like just a decent offensive assassin, which is not super common to come by, right? A lot of those are higher rarity guys that you're looking at, like your Hassans, your Cleopatra, your Shutens, like your really strong DPS assassins are a little bit harder to come by on like the more free-to-play level. Your options are like 100 personas or like grailing your Kojiro, which not everybody wants to do, believe it or not. Not everybody wants to grail their legend. And so this gives you like kind of a different option for a lot of that, right? You get like a bigger, beefier body, right? And then she also like has like the piercing ability, right? Which is really good. Like her NP is almost like pretty much guaranteed to always hit and do some pretty decent damage. So that just brings a lot of, that just is very valuable for someone like me. I think that brings a lot of value to her kit. Hokusai is basically what I would want like Kagetora to get, right? Almost. Like Hokusai to me almost feels like she feels like to Kagetora what Nightingale feels like to Altera to me. Like a just slightly more modern take on a very similar kit, or like a very similar idea, right? It seems like she kind of took any of the flaws that they put into Kagetora and they moved them over to Hokusai, because Hokusai has almost got like a flawless kit. Like Hokusai is firing like a million bajillion NPs super consistently. She's got like the battery that's enough. She can like generate some stars for herself as an art servant, which is always really, really good. She's just strong in like numerous different ways. Like Hokusai is just very, very good. Eris, I'm trying not to hold back on the fact that Eris is an art servant that you cannot use to farm. But then again, that's kind of like the whole point of like an art servant, right? If I think about like Eris, and she's an art servant, right? And an art servant's main, their whole goal, whole thing, is that they want to loop their NP. But Eris insta-killing people goes against her ability to refund NP. It's like, the way that her kit is built fundamentally opposes what she wants to do, right? And it's like, as an art servant, like not even as like a Lancer or a DPS or anything, it's like she is fundamentally at her core at odds with herself, right? It's really strange. It's really strange. Yeah, how dare she insta-kill my opponent? Literally, but it's literally like, how dare Eris insta-kill my opponent? I am trying to farm, because like Eris's kit is so good. Like the anti-servant niche, insane. That would be so good for farming, right? Because pretty much every third wave has a servant. It would make her so nutty for that. But they threw in the insta-kill thing. And why? Like, and why, if you're watching this and you're like, well, why is that a big deal? Like, who, like, don't you want to insta-kill people? No, here's the problem. When you insta-kill them, you don't hit them, so you're not refunding your NP back. Like, because that's like the whole point of like refunding your NP is like doing a bunch of hits, getting overkill, refunding a million bajillion NP, and then clapping back. Doubly so for art servants. And Eris is an art servant who is like shooting herself in the foot. Exactly. Like, I think that is 100% like very accurate. I was watching, I don't remember who it was, but I was like watching a video of a guy trying to farm with Eris, and it took him like so many tries to finally get it down. And once Eris got it, she's really good. Like, she's looking really strong, but I think they just need to reformat how she actually works, right? There's other insta-kill servants, like for instance, I believe it's like, no, it's not Tomoe. There's another insta-kill like art servant that you can use for farming, but you don't have to use their insta-kill buff. I don't remember who it is, but there's someone that you're able to use. I know there's someone else, and I'm like, why did you not just build her like that, dude? Why did you not build her like that? Nito, I don't think I'm thinking of Nito Chris, because Nito Chris has her arts buff on the insta-kill buff, if I remember correctly. So I don't think it's Nito, but it's someone like, it's someone that also has that niche that's in like arts AoE. Or maybe I'm just on crack, okay? Maybe that's what it is. Eris insta-kills people bad. No arts buff? Okay, maybe I got it on the wrong one. But maybe it is Nito Chris. Maybe that's who I'm thinking of, or maybe I'm just on crack. Yeah, okay. She's really good. Yu is kind of insane. And it's just like, the only thing that I think would hold her back from being broken is that she is battlefield based, right? Like, she's based on what battlefield she's fighting on. Because if you can get her with like any of her conditions, if you can get like anything going, right? She's insane. Like, look, I have this other tab pulled up specifically for this purpose. If I ever need to like show off like, oh, no, like this is what this person does and it's insane, right? So I have this other tab open over here. Like, look at this, dude. If you could just get like one of these, you're rocking 40% NP gain, and you're basically just like spamming all over the place. It's stupid, dummy, insane. And she's anti-male, dude. Anti-male, bro. It's like, they were like, what if we took, like, not Lesengo, but DW is like thinking, they're like, what if we made like Summer Tamamo, but she was quick and could spam her NP, and she was a free NP5, right? Makes her stupid, right? To be honest, it's fair that Kagetora and you are in the same place. Yeah, that's also kind of what I'm thinking in, because I kind of have them very similar. Like, I think if you have you with her like at her best, she's definitely in broken, 100%. Like, I think if you've got you, like you're fighting like a male, which is not uncommon, and you've got one of her battlefields, which isn't uncommon, right? Waterside and Sunlight are not like insane battlefields to get, but you know, you might get unlucky. Like, the boss for like this event, they might be in a lava place, right? Like, it's just unfortunate, right? You might get like an archer or berserker boss that's like Hercules or Gilgamesh, right? It's like a male that she's super effective, has the damage mod, but they're fighting in like a volcano, or they're fighting in like a palace somewhere, or they're in a forest, right? It's just unfortunate, right? It's a little unfortunate because, again, she's a DPS, so you want to bring her against specific bosses, right? And sometimes you meet all the conditions, except you're not getting like the first skill or anything. Because, and I already know I'm going to see like a comment of someone being like, well, why is the first skill that big of a deal? And it's like, dude, it turns her into a maniac, dude. She turns into an actual just spurg all over the place. Just like, yeah, let me just refund all my NP and then just keep throwing like just actual nuclear missiles at these male bosses, just obliterating them, right? It's just insane, right? So she's really good. If you can get those conditions down, she is definitely broken. But because there is that, I don't want to say RNG aspect to it, but you know, there's just the unfortunate reality that, well, yeah, Gilgamesh is the boss for this event, but he's not on a sunlight battlefield. You could still bring you. She'll still perform really well. That's why she's still at least in good, but she doesn't hit that same broken level, right? She doesn't hit that same broken level that you'll see that when, like, if anybody's ever used her and you get her on like sunlight or water side, or God forbid you're fighting on a beach during the daytime, it's over. Like, you just obliterate people. Santa Karna is literally just good. This guy's literally just a solid servant. I don't think he's like particularly more broken than someone like you. I think I like you a little bit better, but Karna's literally just actually standard.jpg good servant, right? The little bit of flaws that he does have are like, say that his first skill is hit based, but at the very least, he will always still have that quick buff on his NP, right? There's little weird things here and there that I'm like, okay, he specifically removes guts. That's a little weird. Like, why don't you just remove all defensive buffs? It's kind of strange, especially because the lore for Santa Karna is that he punches as hard as Vasavdi Shakti, like, you know, his noble phantasm as a lancer. And I'm like, if that's the thing, I get why we're piercing through guts and we're removing it to like obliterate them, but why are we not removing everything? It's just really, there's like little oddities, but he still gets there. Like, good survivability, just generically good offense. The fact that he can give like debuff immunity to himself with a nice, not an insane battery, but a nice small battery to make him a little bit more consistent. Definitely just like standard.jpg good servant. Same thing for someone like Ushi's mentor. I always forget her name. Tyra's the big Ushi. I always forget. But she's just like a farming servant, right? Like, you can use her as like your AoE quick farmer. She's an AoE assassin, which also gives her a bit of an interesting niche, because there's not a whole lot of like AoE assassins just in general, right? Especially ones that are good. Like, it's not something that we really are getting all the time. Although I say that, and then like Huion literally just came out, which is really funny. But you get what I'm saying. She's like, yeah, Kichi Hogan, that's her name. I just needed someone to say like one of her names. I saw Kichi and I was like, it's Hoagie. Like, I always remember as Hoagie, which is funny because that's a Twinkie. But anyway, she's like really good, right? She's really, really solid. She can do farming for you just fine. Like, as long as you're able to like give her just any bit of like a decent setup. Like, you can bring like a friend Scotty, you've got your Kichi Hogan, and you could bring like a Waver plus a Parasussi or an Asclepius, something along those lines will definitely get her across the finish line. Like, she can farm just fine for you, and her skills are all just decent, right? They're just all decent. Nothing, I don't think there's anything intensely broken, but she's just, you know, hey, you have an AoE assassin now that's just really good, and she can also farm for you if you need a quick farmer. So she's really good in that aspect. Idle Altar. Idle Altar's a little bit interesting. I'm actually going to think about that one a little bit more. And we're going to go skip over to Da Vinci. Because Da Vinci, this one's a little hard. Because I really like what they did with Da Vinci Ruler. Because Da Vinci Ruler, for you NA players that don't know what she does, she's kind of like the ultimate, like, I don't want to say the ultimate free-to-play support, right? But it's kind of like she can fulfill a lot of different roles in your parties, right? Like, she's very, very diverse. She's doing like a little bit of something for everyone, right? Like the fact that she can give like all the different card buffs. Her NP differs and gives different buffs, but they're all just generally really good. And so, while like I kind of want to put her in broken for that reason, there's like also the fact that while she is kind of like a jack of all trades, master of none, there's kind of like that. Where like, yeah, she can support pretty much anybody in any party, but she's never going to do it to like an insane like OP level. Like, in fact, like if you wanted to bring somebody to support like an arts party, you're probably better off bringing like Asclepius or Paracelsus, right? Because Paracelsus still gives like the arts buff. He gives the guts for survivability. He gives you the mad NP gain to help them loop. Like, you're almost better off bringing him as like your free-to-play arts guy, or you're better off bringing like Chen Dingledong as like the buster guy, especially if they're like a berserker, right? Since he can taunt enemies off of them, he can give them extra defense to keep them alive. He can give them basically hero creation specifically tailored for berserkers. And so it's like, while I do think she's really good, and I like the idea of putting her in the game and like having her what's it called, like fulfill that role of like the omni support. It's just also true that there's other free-to-plays that kind of do it better than she does, but it still doesn't mean that she's bad, if that like all makes sense, right? Makes sense. Jufu, yeah, Jufu as well. Jufu's kind of in like a league of her own. I don't know what they were smoking when they made that servant, but they were like, yeah, here's like actual God, here you go. And I was like, dude, you guys need to relax. Like, Jufu is way too good. For a servant that is just on every banner and is a 3-star, they were like, here you go. Here's basically free-to-play Castoria. Here you go. Don't have Nero Bride, don't have Castoria, swoosh, here's Jufu. I do not know what they were smoking when they made that servant. She is beyond broken. All right, now we're back to kind of more mid-servants. This one's actually pretty easy because both of these two are not super great. I mean, Santa Altar can do some big damage, I suppose, and you can like loop a node with Skahawk over here, which is kind of nice, but Skahawk I feel loses a lot of her value because Kichi Hogan now exists, right? And Salter, as much as I love her a lot, like reading her events was one of the reasons that I like really got into like reading the events in FGO as a whole. Like I thought it was just like a really sweet, cute event. I thought it was really nice, and I was like, all right, cool. Like Salter is not like some spurgy character. She's actually really chill. Like she's very vibey, but she just doesn't quite live up to like a lot of the other free-to-play modern servants that we've got going on right now. So yeah, and speaking of, we've got a lot of like nutty broken people coming up. So first and foremost, we could just snipe EO out of here. EO, I don't know what it is. They literally just gave us like, hey, here is like the most like free like farmer of all time. Like, I don't really know what else to say. They literally just gave everybody an arts AoE that can farm like pretty much anything that you want, right? Like she can just be your farmer. She's baby Ibuki basically, right? She is basically the free-to-play Ibuki, right? Ibuki's a bit better, right? Because obviously like bigger stats, Berserker and all that stuff. But the fact that Io's like a ruler means you could effectively bring her anywhere neutral in the same way that you could bring like Dante's or Voyager anywhere neutral. Her damage is good enough because she's free NP5. Her damage mod is good enough, and she just good. Yeah, and then medium is premium too. Yeah, exactly, bro. Awesome. Like also medium is premium. Like thumbs up. Just not a whole lot of negative to say about this servant. Sieg is also pretty dummy broken. Sieg is kind of like the EO before EO even came out. There's not a whole lot to say. She pretty much for like a lot of the same reasons that EO is good. Sieg is good. They're kind of just like
won in the end.
free, insane farming people. How do it be? Hey, my boy Blaine, thanks for this 2-month subby. We're going pretty good. I'm recording a tier list video for tomorrow's video, and we're almost done actually recording it, so we'll go play some FGO and chill out. But yeah, Sieg is basically just EO 1.0, and EO is Sieg 2.0, however you want to look at that. They're just really good farming servants that like you would even use even if you had like gold, like, well, not gold rarity, but like actual real farming servants, right? Until you get someone insane like Ibuki, or you get someone like Space Ishtar, or something along those lines, right? All right, last couple of servants. So these all are just going to range kind of from like good, probably, except for like Ryder Liz. Ryder Liz I'm not super high on. I'm not super high on Ryder Liz. Like I was kind of high on her when she first came out. I was like, wow, this servant's actually pretty good. And then the more and more that I used her, the more and more I was like, okay, never mind. Like she's okay. Like she's nothing like too nutty special. She's nothing super insane. Whereas like Munchkin Liz over here kind of won me over with the last event, being able to like farm certain things. This is the like the mountain event where like Huyan came out. I started using her more and more around then, and I like didn't think she was as good as she was when I was first using her. But then I realized I ran out of foes during the event because I gave it to like Okita or some other servant. Like I gave the foes that I got from that event to someone else, so I couldn't give it to Liz. So Liz wasn't even like at optimal like farming strength, right? And so then the more and more I used her, the more I was like, oh, okay, like after, especially after like the month reset and I was able to get her foes and stuff like that. Definitely was like, okay, this servant is actually like pretty decent, right? It was one of those servants that like originally I thought she was going to be like average. Then I realized that like, wasn't really using her like optimally, and optimally question mark. I didn't have the foes for her, but once I got her that, I was like, you know what? Actually pretty good. Actually a pretty solid servant. Same thing for I forget her name, but I forget her name because a lot of like the whole like Trung sister event is kind of lost to me, right? I've lost a lot of that stuff like mentally, but she's also very decent. Like these like more modern ones are all just like really good just off the fact that they have like modern kits, right? Like if you look at any of them, they've pretty much got everything that you would want a like more modern servant to have. I got to be careful to not throw you back in there because I already got one. But like they're all just good. With the exception that like MHX Alter. MHX Alter is the one that like I'm still debating if I want to put her in like average or usable, but like these guys just all are just like good. Like Ranmaru sometimes might struggle a little bit to farm a node, but overall like she could still get the job done, right? Like you can get the job done with her. Martha's just like kind of just good for the party, right? Like you just slap her in a party and you're not really going to be complaining. Like sure, could you bring like double cast Toria instead? Probably, but Martha, you know, she's helping out. She's helping out. She's doing good. I was a little worried about them because let me show people that are on NA. She has like the foundation. Like you would look at her and you'd be like, this person's going to be insanely broken because they've got like this 10 hit NP, right? But their NP gain is a little low, and so I know initially when they came out, I was like, ooh, I don't know if their hits are gonna like really balance out their low NP gain, but it's just Castoria is so broken that it doesn't matter anyway. So they're really, really good. They're very, very strong. 10 hits. If you want to mess around with like crit star generation stuff, you know, if you want to bring in Caskill, they can become an insane star gen if you really want to do stuff like that. So just in general, the merits of like these guys just being newer, they're just going to be good. They're just going to be better than a lot of the people that came before them just off of that alone. And so MHX Alter, it's like because she's like one of the ones that I have the like least amount of experience using, and like every time that I've used her, she's been like good but hasn't been great, if that makes sense. Like she's like one of those servants that every time I use her, like she gets the job done, but it's kind of like she's just sloppy about it, right? And that just makes me feel like she's an average servant, right? That makes me put her on like the average usable level, because I'm like, if she can get it done, you know, then that's fine. But if you're doing it in like a worse position than like these other people, then I feel like you got to go down here. Like that's kind of my reasoning, even though admittedly, like look, I'm admitting to everybody watching this video, she's the one that I have the least amount of experience using. But every time I would use her, well, and that also being said, we stream like every single day for like a couple of hours, so like I've still used her like a couple of dozen times. It's not like I've used her once and never again, but like it's like I've just only used her like 36 times, as opposed to like I've used Jalter like probably over 1,000 times in nodes, or like going into like just random boss fights or just stuff to just actually just mess around using her, right? So it's like my experience with her is a lot less, but it's also because like she never really like pulls me to like go and use her, right? Like because every time I use her, she feels very sloppy. But this is kind of what I'm looking at right now. I know video kind of fell apart towards the end there, right? But we're reaching 48 minutes, so my voice is kind of dying. So towards the end, I'm sorry if like the explanations got a little worse, because I was like, all right, yeah, Martha's like good, she's like a support, and you know, like this was a concern that I had with them, but like let's get on with this because my voice is dying, and I still got to run a D&D session tonight as well, and that's going to be like a good 5+ hours. So I'm sorry if you were like really looking forward to like the Hisui, right? If you're looking forward to like her breakdown and her getting like as much love as like some of the other people, but my voice is starting to die, and I'm like, okay, I just need to start like getting through this. Like, it's like, okay, at the end of the day, they're all really good because we're not broken, but they're really good because they're just newer servants and they're able to get the job done. I was like, okay. The only one that I had contentions over was MHX Alter, but I think next I'm going to probably go through like the different classes. Maybe we might either go through like the different classes, like we go through like sabers and archers and stuff like that. My only thing is that I'm like, that might be a little long, but then again, this video is like 50 minutes long, so you know, I might just be able to get it done. But if you enjoyed the video, leave a like. If you made it this far, comment your thoughts in the comments down below. Tell me why you think that Sieg is actually a poo-poo stinky, don't call my phone, leave me alone character. You know what I'm saying? Tell me why you think Skahawk is actually broken. Give me your game theories in the comments down below. But with all that being said, I will catch you guys on the flippity floppity. Peace.